This is the story telling about how the Rugrats really were but a mere figment of Angelica Pickles' imagination. Chucky Finster had passed away a long time ago alongside his mother. And that's why Chaz Finster is a nervous wreck all the time. Tommy Pickles was stillborn. This is why Stu Pickles, Tommy's father, is constantly in the basement making toys for the son who never had a chance to live as a way to cope with the loss. The DeVilles had an abortion, and since Angelica could never figure out whether the baby would have been a boy or a girl, she created the twins, Phil and Lil. As for the all-grown-up spin-off of the Rugrats show, Angelica was a bipolar schizophrenic who, as a teenager, had become addicted to various narcotics which psychologically brought her back to her childhood, thus creating a world in her mind that she obsessed over. Because of the time lapse between the present day and the last time she had interacted with her imaginary world, she had made them older. Angelica was constantly taking hits of acid so she would never, ever have to live in a world without her creations. Because to her, her creations were her only company in a cruel and judgmental world. Angelica's birth mother had passed away from a heroin overdose, and the only reason that Angelica was suffering from bipolar schizophrenia was because she herself was a crack baby due to her birth mother's addiction. Additionally, Drew Pickles, Angelica's father, in his depression, had married a gold-digging whore that Angelica, being young, had idolized because she fooled herself into thinking that she was her real mother. However, Angelica had always had a concept of her mother. She used an old Barbie doll to mirror her birth mother's image, wearing an unwashed orange dress and having jacked up hair, which is why she was so attached to it in the show. Later in life, she followed in her birth mother's footsteps, passing away from a drug overdose at the age of 13, right around the time where All Grown Up was canceled. The only Rugrat who was not fictional, however, was the unborn Tommy's little brother, Dill. However, at the time, Angelica did not know the difference between Dill and her creations. Dill never followed her commands, and after endless crying and a refusal to disappear like the others did when Angelica was angry or upset with them, she hit him. After Angelica hit Dill, he began screaming and screeching so loudly that Stu ran in and pulled his niece off of his only child. But it was too late. Dill had suffered a brain hemorrhage, which resulted in a deformation. As he grew older, the damage only became more evident, and by the time he was 9 years old and all grown up, he lived as an outcast, being ridiculed and mocked by his peers for his weirdness and retardation. The immense guilt over what happened is what caused Angelica to start using drugs in the first place, and to uncreate the Rugrats briefly until her experience with hallucinogenics. Chaz had lost his mind after the death of his first wife, and he was in denial that when his wife was alive, she was ever a prostitute at one point in her life. Something that apparently caused quite a bit of strain on their marriage over time, prior to her passing away. It was on a trip to Paris to find love again that Chaz had fallen in love with a hooker named Kira. Originally, he was going to marry another woman, but she just wanted him for his money. And Kira, despite her occupation, was a genuinely kind and caring woman. Kira told Chaz that she had once had a daughter named Kimi, but the baby was taken away from her by law enforcement due to her struggling with a cocaine addiction at the time. Based on this information and some stories that Kira would tell her, Angelica imagined Kimi, and she was added to the Rugrats group. Upon returning to America, Chaz and Kira immediately got married, and she got a green card. Despite everything, it was a surprisingly happy and romantic story. Despite Kira still struggling with addiction, going through a cycle of rehab, recovery, and relapse, she was still relatively happy with her new life with Chaz. Susie, who was Angelica's only real friend outside of her delusions, was the only one who entertained the thought of Angelica's creations, because they seemed to make her happy. Later in life, Susie became a psychologist and teamed up with Nickelodeon and the creators of Rugrats to help make the show. When Angelica died of the overdose at 13, Susie offered to help arrange her funeral as a way to honor her late best friend, whom she was unable to save from her inner demons. Because of her addictions and her broken mental state, Angelica was expelled from society, which led to a break from reality and her eventual death. Moments before the overdose took her life, she spent the last days of her life in the back of the school cafeteria, imagining friends all around her, and played with the lives of her creations. Thank you to all my $9 patrons for supporting this video. Aiden S. 2014, Alexander Lee, Angelic Panda, Ursulan Falati, Urisville, Brantley Wiggard, Chief, D4C, Darts Z, Declan Benoln, Delboy, Draco, Dragonblood Fire X, Ellison Wilson, Araviv, Evil Doer, Phelanil W. 2011, Frank, Gavin, Isaac Coria, Jace, Joel Climaco, Jonessi, Cade, Lawbringer DK, Lex, Liam Hughes, Lone Survivor 3, Man of Many Bees, Mark Mason, Maxwell Lukier, Nick Capone, PDP, Patrick Jan Josua Davidson, Poyup, Prism, Prototype Number 13, Sean Malcolm, Sleepy Sloth, Sneedly Chuck, Sonrox, Thoughty Dahati, Tommy, Uriel Herrera, Will, XX Antitrix Never Sorry 17XX, Zach Hale, and Zivis01. Thank you all so much for being able to make these videos possible. It really means the world and more to me that you guys support me the way that you do. If any of you would like to support me out there, I'll leave the links to my social media down below. There you can find both my Ko-Fi and my Patreon. That way, if you want to make a one-time donation, you can, and if you want to continue to support me full-time, you can also. Thank you all again so much for listening to today's audio or watching today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!